Futurama Comics, Issue 60. Bender offers Fry some green ham, which was pre-packaged breakfast that wasn't for the delivery boys to eat. The guy at the Green Cheese Cafe on the moon tells him to go over here and says it's green because of mold. So it must be edible alien mold that isn't unrealistically dangerous to eat, or it'd be shut down by now. He reveals the health inspector gave him an A-rank certificate that said the restaurant bribed him, when he wouldn't actually admit that. Well, neither him or the health inspector. Fry asks Leela if she'd want to go on the rides, and she agrees. I suppose it's understandable that the story had them go to the moon's amusement park again, even if it is lazy, because it's such a nice idea that it's worth revisiting. Bender wants to go to the House of Horrors for no reason, and Fry goes on a literal emotional roller coaster with Leela out of curiosity, when clearly it wouldn't be that fun. So it goes from romantic to Leela being jealous of the girlfriend to apologizing to him. They get mad at the ride and want to do something to ruin it, but then calm down because of the forgiveness part of the ride. I don't know if Fry would want to ride it again though. A person dressed up in a devil costume doesn't scare Bender because he had lunch with the robot devil yesterday. So he tells a person dressed as a bedsheet ghost that he stinks, mimicking what he said. And doesn't find the zombie scary either for some reason. He then has a good point about how real life is a lot scarier than made up stuff, which scares the people around him. So he says they're doomed and they run away. And Morbo's here with his happy nephew and is impressed. So I wonders if Bender considered a career in cable news. So Bender calls out to Leela to tell him he's gonna go back to Earth to do that. And realistically, they can't hear him from up on that giant Ferris wheel. And I'm relieved that it had that attention to realism. He does something to make the wheel start spinning insanely fast and get everyone on it nauseous, so that he could tell his friends his plan to join Wolf News. I have to wonder how a convicted felon would ever get hired for any job, let alone as many special jobs as Bender did. Because qualified or not, everyone would prefer to hire someone who's both qualified and not a felon. Leela and Fry are seeing double, but seem to be magically fine in the next panel. A cowboy knows they're friends with Bender and realistically wants someone to pay for the wheel he broke. Fry says Bender lost all his money gambling on light roulette. He put all his money on the beam being a particle, and it turned out to be a wave. I like that it develops on it being the future more. And the cowboy unrealistically threatens them at gunpoint to force them to work off Bender's debt. Wouldn't the guns be more restricted than that? He's not some random guy. He's outright the owner of the place. So cowboy costume or not, it seems unprofessional. And a ray gun doesn't even go with the cowboy getup anyways. But I understand him wanting them to work off the debt, because he shouldn't have to pay for something unfair like that happening to him. He zaps them with a t-shirt ray, which gives them uniform shirts. So that's why he's allowed to brandish that ray gun. But the fact remains, people would think it's a ray gun on sight and call the police, and even the cops might not be familiar with it. Anyways, he says they'd take 15 years to pay off that Wheel of Fortune. Again, since restaurant owners aren't allowed to make their customers work off their debt to them in real life anymore, I don't know if him being allowed to do this to them is realistic. He may not be literally a restaurant owner, but the fact remains that he's forcing people to work for him without pay, and that's called slavery. You'd think Leela would be smart and desperate enough to try to sick the police on him for this. Not to mention the more pragmatic problem with this is that these two haven't proven themselves to be qualified as workers. Leela's gonna work in the game area, and Fry's gonna manage the rides. Meanwhile, Bender's surprisingly insecure at first, only to cheer up because Morbo threatens him. Because Mom used to give the robots that same pep talk back at the robot factory. I love that the Wolf News literally has the slogan, "We tear the truth apart." It's not realistic that they'd be that honest about themselves though. Bender calls the people who believed in the 2012 apocalypse belief a bunch of gullible saps, but then says he just found this Fembot calendar in the dumpster, and the month of May was missing. He wonders out loud if it was torn out by him, and then says that's just what the authorities want them to think. He wonders if the real reason May is missing is that the world's gonna end tomorrow. And somehow we see people watching this on TVs outside of a store window who actually believe him. when he just said something that implied that he tore out the month of May from the calendar himself. He doesn't provide any evidence and says this out of nowhere. It's just one calendar he's holding, and all they'd have to do is Google this to verify it. And Bender just made fun of the people who'd believe that was guaranteed to happen, only to promptly switch audiences and encourage that same kind of belief. Some people immediately decide to go stealing, and one of them steals a TV because he's tired of getting all of his TVs through electronics store windows. This was way too easy for Bender. And since Morbo's always been evil, he congratulates Bender on causing a panic on the first day. I think those two just want an excuse to start looting. Leela's told she's in charge of the milk bottle game, and when she says it sounds easy, she falls, and the boss says that he turned on artificial gravity under the booth to make the ball weigh a ton, which is why nobody ever won that game. Leela calls him out on it and gets told to make him a martini. Fry naturally says that the merry-go-round is the slowest and most boring ride, and wants to work on one of the more exciting rides. But this is a lot safer of a position to put Fry in when he's just started and not qualified to work here. Then Bender, in the perfect position for this kind of anti-role model character, says he knows the world didn't end today and blames a secret organization that doesn't want the audience to know the truth about who supposedly planted that calendar. This time he at least tries to provide evidence that he didn't make this up on the spot, because he shows them a piece of paper after saying he glanced at the internet for a few seconds to learn about the Illuminati. I like that it's named after aluminum as well to take advantage of it being in the future. He says there are robots that secretly control everything. He doesn't explain how that could have ever come to be though. Are robots not allowed to run for political office in the future? He says this piece of paper is their plan to blow up the Earth and sell the remains to a charcoal briquette company. He wouldn't have found that so easily if that was true. And it's much more likely they just typed on a piece of paper and printed it out after making everything up. Predictably, everyone believes him because they're dumb enough to want to watch Wolf News, and they don't want to believe they were gullible for believing him the other time. And he says the world's ending tomorrow, and people cause trouble in the streets again. Morbo says that it's times like this that make him glad he was paid extra and got the high-clarity windows for his office. Leela pities someone for failing at the bottle game, and is sad that his daughter says she's lost respect for men in general. She tells him to try again for free and changes the gravity to let him win. That'd get her fired if her boss found out. Wait, he wouldn't fire them because that'd be too easy, and he wants them to pay off the debt. If they could just make him mad enough to fire them to get out of this, they'd have no excuse for not doing that. But instead they're working under the assumption that getting him mad would just cause him to make them suffer. He'd changed their jobs to awful ones. The girl gets the toy and is somehow happy when talking about the loss of her mom on her camping trip. Maybe because she hated her. Fry says Farnsworth got his message and came to the moon to make his ride more exciting. Farnsworth says he doesn't have any other choice when most of his delivery crew either quit or got jobs here. He says he already changed up the merry-go-round when Fry was napping. Now makes temporary clones of the person on the brown horse to ride with. But what happens if there's already people riding on the other horses? The clones would telefrag themselves with them and kill them. Then he plans on making the rocket-shaped bouncy castle rocket away. Then Bender has Amy on his show because she doesn't like it, and asks her why she hates Earth with no real evidence to make her look bad. She says she doesn't and just wants him to stop scaring people because someone could get hurt. People already did. We saw someone get punched. She'd know that. She gets accused of threatening him because of that, when it's obvious that she wasn't doing that based on her tone and words from earlier. I think he's lying and playing it up on camera for ratings. She gets a wild accusation of being a world-threatening human bomb and demands to see her birth certificate, which no one would have on hand. So he really is playing it up for the camera because he acts as if he's just discovered she's a Martian and tells everyone to run and panic. Leela gets scared when she sees that the bear the guy won burst open and was filled with garbage. She apologizes and finds out that the other one was as well, and they're all like that because there's no real money in carnivals, apparently. But someone will always pay you to help empty their landfills. Carnivals may have fallen out of fashion because of the internet, but they'd still make a lot of money off their rigged games if enough people play them. And it's still making enough money to stay in business. But fine, whatever. Cities give them their trash, and they stuff it into the prizes, instead of everything being recyclable, which it would be in the future. And he thinks it's fine because nobody's supposed to win them. Farnsworth lies to Fry that he's never going to call him stupid because he's family, and then calls him an idiot instinctively for pressing a button. Why did he make a button he didn't want him to press? It launches the bouncy house, but Farnsworth didn't make the remote control for it yet. It turns towards them somehow on its own, and he tells Fry to pick him up and jump away from the impact. It was amusing that he said action movie style. He made the engine too powerful, and it broke the moon free of its orbit and sent it hurtling towards the Earth. That's ridiculous. And if the moon went close enough to the Earth would be completely doomed just from proximity alone, because of the moon's gravity. So I hope it won't come too close to the Earth, and it's not moving that fast. If the situation isn't the case for very long, maybe it won't be so stupid that everyone doesn't die. Farnsworth decides to call Nixon because he thinks that launching missiles at the moon will knock it back into orbit. It's amusing to see Nixon happy about glass cleaning day. It takes advantage of him being a head in a jar for once, so this is why he's not answering the phone. Farnsworth wishes someone else could warn people of their doom. So Fry considers Bender and calls him. Bender assumes it's his parole officer from off screen and warns everyone, but reality ensues finally because he's cried wolf so many times that no one cares anymore. Which is weird because his audience was really stupid, and it doesn't help that he did it every time he was on the air. Even though Dave says his wife said she doesn't have room for any more stolen stuff, and he tells himself to think about what would get the attention of a dumb, angry mob. Thankfully he's called out on for thinking out loud, but that'll just make me wonder why his plan will work, because he's implying that he's gonna lie later. He says he's talking out loud because he's proud to be an illegal immigrant. People gasp, and he easily scaremongers that the moon's coming towards them full of illegal immigrants. Jillions of them. Nixon's scared at him saying there's jillions of them, and it's amusing because he says he didn't even know jillions was a number. And he fires missiles at the moon. They fortunately strike the uninhabited side of the moon, and bounce the moon back into orbit, when things could have easily gone wrong, and conveniently don't injure the crew either. It destroys the fair, but the cowboy says he insured this place and was coincidentally already planning a fake accident to collect the money. So this is a good excuse for him to let them go because they did him a favor. Only because of a forced mishap. It never makes sense for a character to press a button without knowing what it does first, when right in front of someone who could simply be asked what it does. Fry comforts Bender about being fired for being an illegal alien, not even for just lying that he was, which would have made sense because it would have destroyed his popularity among the gullible people who believed him. And they would have done a background check on him, which would have revealed that he's got a criminal record. He says he ended up getting some work from a company that does commercials on the network, despite everything he said on TV. He says on TV that hoarding gold is the only way to be safe in dangerous times. So he tells people that you can find gold in jewelry boxes, the fillings of the elderly, or bank vaults. Leela's right to say this is terrible because the commercial wouldn't have him say that. Amy thinks that anyone who listens to the commercial is a sucker, even though Bender is right that gold is valuable, so it is smart to sell it. And the story ends with Fry getting hurt stealing dentures. And Bender says there's no gold in them, and he already checked. Wait a minute. Why would fillings in the future be made of gold? Wouldn't they be able to use stem cell technology to instantly grow back the cells of the average person to replace whatever they lost? A lot of technology gets cheaper over time, but apparently it's still too expensive. Farnsworth, at the very least, could have made his teeth grow back, instead of suffer the indignity of dentures, when he's supposed to be a prideful inventor. He made Hubert just fine, but apparently he's more lazy than proud. This story was about Bender getting hired to scaremonger on Wolf News, and he made a Ferris wheel spin too fast to get his friends downtown to tell them that, which destroys the wheel and makes his friends have to work off his debt for free. No one thinks to go to the cops or even a lawyer. And instead they get free of the job when Farnsworth makes the bouncy house able to rocket away for fun. Fry presses a button instead of asking what it does and launches it without a way to control it, And when it somehow sends the moon hurtling towards the Earth, Bender scares Nixon into firing missiles at the moon to save the day and destroy the fair, which hopefully had nobody get hurt from it. And I love that Morbo hired someone like Bender for this. It's a great insult. And I love that it's Morbo, because of course he would approve of this.